Prabhupada ki, ISKCON Indiana ki, Hare Krishna. I'm going to chant some prayers of invocation to invite auspiciousness, so if you know the prayers, then please join in. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangaite Kirim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasati Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
I have to say it's a real pleasure to be here in Indiana. I've been here in America for about almost 7 weeks now. I was actually planning on being back in Europe by now, but Pandit Srivas Prabhu persuaded me to stay. His loving kindness, his enthusiasm, and his desire for Indianapolis to grow really pulled me here. So I really like to thank him for all of the arrangements and bringing us all together here today. And I think what I wanted to really speak about today was just to reflect on what we have here in terms of, in a relative bud form, but the potential that we have here in Indianapolis is really wonderful and has the potential to be something very wonderful, or something very special. I really have so much appreciation for those people who contributed to my Krishna conscious journey. I met devotees over the years. When I was young, I went to the temple. I was born and bred in London, so I went to Bhaktivedanta Manor. I went to ISKCON London, Soho Street, many times when I was young. I grew up with Krishna, so I remember my mother would read Bhagavad Gita, and then in the early 90s, the Mahabharata came on TV. And this was the Chopra Mahabharata, the best. There's been so many after, the Chopra Mahabharata was the best. So I remember being glued to the TV screen. It was the highlight of the week. And from 2:40 p.m. to 3:20 p.m., there would be the Mahabharata. So whatever I was doing, I was out playing football with my friends, whatever it was, but I'd come home and be there at 2:40 on the dot to watch Chopra Mahabharata. And the whole family was glued. In India, when it came just a couple of years before, it aired in India, and I hear that if you go to Vrindavan, there's Loy Bazaar, such a hustling, bustling place. But when Mahabharata was on TV, it was empty, quiet. No one was there, like a ghost town. And everyone was glued to the few TVs in town. There's a little TV, and who knows how many people just glued trying to catch a glimpse of what was going on. So it was really an event, and it was so captivating, so powerful. And for me, one of the most captivating things was Krishna. Krishna was played by an actor called Nitesh Bharadwaj. And he was just so angelic, so much finesse. His smile was so natural. The dialogues, his lines were great, And I learned so much just from the lines. And from his words of wisdom, etc. So then for me, whenever I used to pray to Krishna, after that, when I used to pray to Krishna, in my mind's eye was that Krishna, Nitesh Bharadwaj, this actor. And then a few years later, I saw a Hindi movie. So I watched a handful of Hindi movies in my life. And in this movie, there was a villain, the bad guy. And who was the bad guy played by? Nitesh Bharadwaj. And I was, oh my God, what is Krishna doing? Nitesh Bharadwaj equals Krishna. What is he doing? He's terrible. He's drinking alcohol, eating meat, and womanizing. What's my Krishna doing? So, like that, it was a growing experience. So I separated Nitesh Bharadwaj and Krishna. So, but yeah, it was when I was at university. I think I met the right person at the right time. I was in my first year at university, the first week, and I went to the Krishna Consciousness Society. And every week there was a talk on the Bhagavad Gita. And the speaker was black-bodied. And my first thought was, what is he going to tell me about my book? I grew up with this book. My mother was reading this daily. I heard about the philosophy and the essence of this book all my life. What is he going to be able to tell me that I don't already know about this book? So I had this kind of challenging mindset internally. And but then he began speaking. And he blew my socks off. Do you know this phrase? Do you have this in America? Yeah. He blew my socks off. I was so impressed by his knowledge. But more than that, okay, so he had knowledge, he knew what the philosophy was, he knew verses from the Gita. It was obvious, he knew this book like the back of his hand. What was even more impressive was that he had such faith in this wisdom. More faith than I did, even though I grew up with it. I thought, where did he get this from? This is something special. So he made a claim. And that claim was that there is no question that this book, that the Vedic literatures cannot answer. There is no question that you can ask that this body of knowledge is not able to provide insight to. So then I took this as a challenge. So then every week I'd come with questions. So at the end of the talk he'd say, any questions? And I'd put my hand up. It became almost expected that he'd have questions. So then I always ask questions, and I thought, okay, there is no clear, logical, concise, satisfying answer to this question. And every week he surprised me, because he had such clarity and such wisdom to share based on the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic literatures. And so like this, my faith grew in Krishna consciousness. At first I thought basically that these are white guys trying to practice my religion. But I realized that no, that actually number one, this Bhagavad Gita is nothing to do with the color of your skin, nothing to do with where you were born, what language you speak, what food you eat. This is talking, the basis of the knowledge is that I am spirit soul. And that is the same for each and every one of us, wherever we're from, whatever walk of life, whatever race, color, creed, culture, language, etc. It is equal. We're all equal fundamentally. So Krishna is speaking on the level of the soul. There is no such thing as Hindu in the Vedic literatures. This was actually a Persian term. There was a river Indus, and everyone who lived beyond, geographically, beyond this river Indus was called an Hindu. And then slowly this became Sindhu, and then it became corrupted to Hindu. So it's actually a geographical term for a group of people who were following a real variety of processes and forms of religion. At one point, of course, the entire world was practicing religion or values based on the Vedic literatures. So this is a very universal process. It is actually for everyone. And we have to have that very clear in our minds and hearts. So when I came here to Indianapolis, Prabhu was mentioning that I guess it's maybe not the most hospitable environment to share Krishna consciousness in, because it's quite a foreign environment. And I was reflecting on Srila Prabhupada and his journey to the West. He was born in Calcutta. He said, I'm a Calcutta boy, Prabhupada would say. And he never left India until 1965. In 1922, Srila Prabhupada received an order from his spiritual master. What he took to be a personal order, of course, it was a collective of people. Prabhupada had a friend, his name was Narendra Malik. And this friend said, there's a sadhu in town, let's go and hear from him. And then Srila Prabhupada, Abhay was his name, he said, I've heard from so many sadhus, my father would have so many so-called saintly people at home. Every other day we'd have someone else. He'd feed them, he'd give them some clothes, he'd give them a donation. And they were all bogey yogis, I didn't trust any of them. So he'd lost faith in these so-called sadhus. But Narendra Malik said, this person is different. Come, let's go. And Srila Prabhupada said that he practically dragged me to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So they went to Altadanga Road Junction. Srila Prabhupada heard from this person, and he heard and he understood that this person is different. He's powerful. He's no ordinary sadhu. And what he's giving and the faith that he has in what he's talking about is unique. And that really stirred Srila Prabhupada's heart, and he thought it to himself that he had found his spiritual master. He accepted him as his spiritual master. So then Srila Prabhupada at the end of the talk, he said, okay, you're talking about sharing this wisdom, this Krishna consciousness with the people of the world. You had said, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, that you're educated people. Share this wisdom of Krishna consciousness with the people of the world. They need it. This is the real need of society. So Srila Prabhupada put his hand up and he said, it's not possible. It's not possible that the world will accept this wisdom whilst India is under British rule. If we get freedom, Prabhupada was a Gandhian. He was following Mahatma Gandhi. And Gandhi was a freedom fighter. Peaceful. But he wanted freedom from British rule. So Prabhupada had this ideology at the time. So he said, we won't be able to do anything unless India becomes free. So then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, no. There is nothing, no material impediment which can stop the march forward of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission to spread Krishna consciousness across the globe, to every town and village. Pritiviti Achiyata Nagaradi Gram. Every town and village, Prachara Oibe Moranam. My name will be sung, the Hare Krishna mantra will be sung. So he had such faith. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had such faith in this mission. And that faith, just through this one interaction, that faith was really implanted into the heart of Srila Prabhupada. So he made that his life's mission. This was in 1922. Fast forward 43 years, 1965. Basically, it was like a lifetime in preparation. If you read the Prabhupada Lilamrita, this is the biography of Srila Prabhupada. It's the main biography of Srila Prabhupada. It's written, there's one chapter which is called, or one section which is called A Lifetime in Preparation. So Srila Prabhupada went through so much, all with this understanding that at some point I have to go to the West and I have to share Krishna consciousness with the people. So at the age of 68, Srila Prabhupada left Calcutta. He boarded a ship. He came with very few belongings, just the basics. He had 40, in terms of cash, money, no bank account, he had 40 rupees. And those rupees weren't even exchangeable in America, so he's literally penniless. And he got off the boat, and he describes he didn't know whether to turn left or turn right. He wrote in New York. He wrote a poem. It's called Margine Bhagavatam. And in this poem, he's explaining that I'm looking around at these people, and they're so, this is so foreign to them. What I have in my heart, what I want to share with these people is just so foreign. How will they take to this? They're so covered by the modes of passion and ignorance. Rajagun, Tamagun is so prominent in this environment. Having never left India, it was a stark contrast for him. And he said, I don't know how this is going to happen. This seems impossible, but Krishna, you've brought me here. I've come here on your order. You've made so many arrangements, you've given me so many indications So many great personalities have told me, I've got to come here, I've got to do this, subliminally as well as gross. I'm here for a reason. You've brought me here, so I'm your puppet. He says to Krishna, O Lord, I'm your puppet, make me dance, make me dance. O Lord, make me dance. So this was Srila Prabhupada's mood and meditation when he arrived. And the rest is history. I'm not going to go through the whole Prabhupada Leelamrita. You can read it if you haven't already done so. Amazing story. But Srila Prabhupada was a pioneer. He was a pioneer. And he was fearless. He's called Abhay Charanaravinda. This was a name he was given by his spiritual master. Abhay, fearless. Why? Because Charanaravinda, he's taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Krishna mareke rakeke, Krishna rakeke mareke. If Krishna wants to protect you, no force in the universe can harm you. So it's a very powerful mood. So what began in 1965, well, the first year was very tough. It's in the Leelamrita, it's called A Year in the Wilderness. Very tough, very difficult. Srila Prabhupada came with a weapon. What was Srila Prabhupada's weapon? I know we're in America, there was no guns. Prabhupada didn't come with a gun or a sword. He came with the Bhagavatam. He came with Srimad Bhagavatam. He had translated at that time the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, in 3 volumes. He printed 200 of these. And he had that in the stow of the ship. So he came, and when he was in New York, he had these Bhagavatams, and he was trying to distribute these Bhagavatams to the people. And people were curious, some of them were curious to see, okay, who is this person in saffron robes, this sadhu from India? Of course, the youth at that time, in the 60s, were revolting against the system. So there was some curiosity. Prabhupada gained a following, but only after some time. The first year was very, very tough. Krishna tests. Krishna tests our resolve. He tests our desire. In any field, in any sphere of life, we get tested. Krishna tested Srila Prabhupada to show us an example. I'm saying this because devotees will maybe face similar challenges, already have probably, and may do in the future also. But after the first year, which was very tough, things began to take shape, and things really began to happen. So Srila Prabhupada established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, actually 1966, so that was 59 years ago, almost to the day. The incorporation of ISKCON is very soon, the anniversary. And he called it the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. How could it be international when he had just a small handful of followers? This was Srila Prabhupada's vision. There was one, Prabhupada was sitting in the park. I think it was Tompkins Square Park. And one Jewish bus driver came and sat next to him. No, train driver. His name escapes me right now. But he was curious. Who are you? What are you doing here? Obviously you're from India. He started to ask him questions. So what's your mission? Why are you here? What brings you here? Srila Prabhupada explained that there are temples. There are devotees. There are many, many books. There is kirtan all over the world. 108 temples, Srila Prabhupada said. So he had this very clear, grand vision. He was sitting in the park, almost penniless, very little interest. But he had such a clear, grand vision and such faith and confidence. So he painted such a vivid picture, and he said, only time separates. Time separates. So this train driver, he was impressed. Who is this person who has such grandiose vision? So, but like we said, Srila Prabhupada was fearless. Once he arrived in London, and by that time, I think it was 1972, London was booming. Krishna consciousness had really taken hold. And there were many, many devotees, so they all greeted Srila Prabhupada. And by that time, reporters were all also interested to see what this Swami from India was all about. So Srila Prabhupada arrived at the airport, the rows were surrounding him, reporters were there. So one British reporter, he asked, "So, Swamiji, what brings you here to British shores?" And Srila Prabhupada said, "You Britishers, you came to India, you took diamonds, emeralds, sapphires, rubies. You even took the Kohinoor diamond. But you forgot the most valuable of all jewels, the most important, the Vedic wisdom, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I've come here to give it to you." Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So Srila Prabhupada was so fearless. Yeah, he called a spade, and he was so determined to give Krishna consciousness to the world. At such an age, he left India, Calcutta, at the age of 68. He had his 69th birthday on the boat, on the journey. And he arrived in America at the age of 69. And between 69 and 81, 12 years, he did so much. In the mid-80s in London, in Bhaktivedanta Manor, as the temple began to grow, more and more people were visiting. Of course, Bhaktivedanta Manor, for those of you who don't know, was donated by George Harrison of the Beatles to the Krishna consciousness movement in 1973. Beautiful mock Tudor mansion, grade 2 listed building, 70 acres of land. We have 70 cows there. Beautiful, beautiful place, a real sanctuary. If you haven't been there, then please go, please visit. But as things began to grow, more and more visitors were coming, and the local people, the local villagers, it's nestled in a village, a hamlet, and people started complaining. Who are these people? Weird people, making so much noise, so much traffic, so many cars coming in on a Sunday afternoon. It's destroying our peace. It's destroying our village. We don't want them here. So there was a petition. And basically, Bhaktivedanta Manor was this close to being shut down. So then the devotees, they began an uprising. Peaceful. But nonetheless, they were working there was a fight to keep the manor open. And that was in almost 10 years of fighting. We employed one of the best QCs. QC is a lawyer. They call it, QC means Queen's Counsel. So they're the best lawyers in the country. So we employed one of these best lawyers in the country. And the lawyer's bill was over £1 million. And this was 30 years ago. So it was a huge bill. So the first thing he said is, "I need your books." So we gave him a whole set of our books. And he said, "I have to read the books to gain a hold of your philosophy, to know what you're all about, in order to defend you effectively in court." And he came back and he said his favourite book was Prabhupada Lilamrita. So then the devotees were curious to understand why, And he said, "Actually, what I understood is that you guys, you don't know Srila Prabhupada. You don't know him. And you don't understand what he did." And the devotees were like, "Hey, who is this guy? Okay, he may be one of the best lawyers in the country. He may be being paid millions. He may be really intelligent, and he just speed read all of our books in a few weeks, which we can't do in years and decades maybe. But who is he to say that he understands Prabhupada better than us?" And he repeated, "You can't understand Prabhupada." So they were really curious. What does this guy mean? What is he talking about? And he said, "Your Srila Prabhupada did so much. He changed the lives of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. He opened 108 temples and communities. wrote so many books, thousands of disciples, traveled around the world for in 12 years he traveled around the world 14 times. But all of that in his 80s, in his 70s. You guys are in your 30s and 40s maximum. You have no idea what it means to be 70 something. And he was in his late 70s. So he said, to be in your 70s, I know what it means. To be in your 70s, you guys have no idea, you can't know what it means. So I don't think there's anyone in their 70s who's here. But I've heard, and what I observe, is that it's quite a debilitating situation in so many ways. But to do everything that Srila Prabhupada did at such an advanced age is very, very special. So I could go on and describe Srila Prabhupada's glories in so many ways. I wish I had millions of tongues and we had many hours. But I think what the point I'm trying to make is that Srila Prabhupada had this very pioneering spirit. And he came to the West with that pioneering spirit. And what we have here in Indiana, in Indianapolis, is the bud of something which can be very, very beautiful. Something which can be very, very special. Something which can be a vehicle to give Krishna consciousness to hundreds and thousands of people in a place which is relatively untouched when it comes to Krishna consciousness. And what I saw yesterday during the Rath Yatra, during the parade, was that there were thousands of people. It was huge. I was impressed. I didn't think it would be so big. We'd have such an audience. And they were open. I've seen hostile environments. I've seen environments where people aren't interested, where they're not open, and they don't want to know, and where you don't feel welcome. That was not a hostile environment. Rather, that was the opposite. They were very open. They were happy. They were waving and they were smiling. They were fascinated. There was a curiosity. And so I really feel that the devotees here have a task. They have a task in their hands. And this is an opportunity. Krishna consciousness provides an opportunity for us all in so many ways. I had the opportunity from Pandit Srivas Prabhu to come to visit here, and I took that opportunity, and I'm so glad that I did. It was wonderful to be a part of that. But particularly those devotees who are living here, who are based here in Indiana, it's a great opportunity for you to be a part of something very special. The establishment of a temple here in Indiana, a community of devotees, a real core of devotees who are committed to being here, to running this space, building a community, attracting more and more people, explaining to them what Krishna consciousness is, how it's relevant to everyone, and how actually this is the answer to all our problems. Because actually Krishna consciousness is essential. If you look at the world today, I read BBC News. I'm from the UK. I don't know what you guys read. When I look at the world, CNN, yeah, NBC, yeah, sorry, Fox News, whichever news channel you use, same news, and it's not looking good. When I look at the world and I compare it to 30 years ago, when I was a youth, I don't see things improving. You know, they say in the 1960s, the biggest problems in a school were kids were talking during class, kids were sticking chewing gum under the table, and the occasional fight outside of school hours or during break time. They were the main problems in the average school in the 1960s. These days, you look at the news. And what are the problems in schools today? Gun crime, teenage pregnancies, and drug abuse. So the scale of the problem is significant. So does this make us feel like, hey, I've got to get out of here? No. Because actually these days, there's no safe place. Many of you from India thinking, I'll go to India. But hey, I look at India, and India is chasing the West as fast as it can. And they're not behind in many ways. And if they are, they're not going to stay behind for long. India's chasing the West as fast as it can. So, what's the solution? The solution is, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Tadvag visargo janatag viplavo yasmin pratishloka abhadavati api. This Srimad Bhagavatam is there to bring about a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. 1:5:11 Bhagavatam. A revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. This is not a recent text. This is a 5,000-year-old text. And when you look around at the world, it's getting more and more misdirected. Correct? In so many ways. So it's so relevant. The message that we have is so relevant for society. So the first thing we need to do is really imbibe this message within ourselves. We need to read and study these books. We need to practice Krishna consciousness seriously, because what we have, as Srila Prabhupada was saying to the British reporter, we have the greatest gem, the greatest wisdom, the greatest gift available to mankind. We need to realize that gift, meaning we need to practice this. We need to imbibe it. And then we will be very effective instruments at giving this to others, at sharing this in a tasteful way, effectively showing people how this is the solution. This is the solution to all of our problems. This can address the fundamental need of human society, because everyone is in want. Everyone is in want of something. Srila Prabhupada would say that actually there's everything. That everything is plentiful in the world. There's enough of everything. There's enough food, water, clothes. Everything is there. There's only one thing that's really missing. What's missing? Bhakti. Love. Real love. This word love is used in society today so loosely. People say, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And they use it. They overuse it. If you look at the Vedic literatures, there are so many pastimes, so many leelas, so much katha. Nowhere is this terminology used. No one says, I love you. Because it's not needed. Actions speak louder than words. In today's society, a man says to a woman, I love you. A woman says to a man, I love you. But then 3 or 4 years later, they're getting divorced. And what do they say? I hate you. I hate you. Then you move on to another partner. And again, I love you, I love you. And then a few years later, I hate you, I hate you. How deep is that love? How genuine is that love? How superficial do we tend to be in life and our relationships? So the Vedic wisdom is providing something very deep, something very profound, and something which fundamentally we all need. We need this. They say there's a hole in our heart. We all have a hole in our heart. Do you ever feel there's a need? We all have a need for something. And we try to fill that hole with so many things. Nice food, big house, nice car, the perfect partner. Imagine many of you were born in India and you had this ideal, I'll go to America. And when I get to America, then all my dreams will be fulfilled. Yeah? And there'll be a nice, beautiful rainbow, and at the end of the rainbow, there's a pot of gold. They're from Ireland, leprechauns. Yeah? So we have these high ideals, this dream, this vision of how everything will be perfect in life, and all my problems will be solved and life will be hunky-dory, and I'll skip home with my partner into the sunset and live happily ever after. That was the vision. Now we're here. We're in America. And for some of you, maybe it's been 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. Did it happen in the way that you expected? Are you absolutely blissful, happy, skipping home in the sunshine? You know? Is everything pink clouds and sunshine? Not quite. Not quite. Why? Because at the end of the day, we're still encaged in this body, we're conditioned souls, and we're in the material world. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Adiyantavanta tukanteya nateshu brahmate buddha. Everything material has a beginning and an end. That's the nature of material. It's temporary. And therefore, nateshu brahmate buddha. And therefore, an intelligent person doesn't take pleasure in such things. An intelligent person knows the nature of this material world. Very, very important. And we can continue trying. Okay, so we're in America and I could make it big. I can become a millionaire. I can become a multi-millionaire. I can get a house in the best part of Indiana. Whatever it may be. Just look at the guy who's got all of that and ask him, are you happy? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all looking for. This is the nature of the soul. Rasovaisa. We all want to be happy. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to be happy. That's natural. That's the nature of the soul. It's just, where do we look for that happiness? Where are we looking? Ultimately, Krishna says, come to me. Serve me. Think of me. Chant my names. And this is what will make us happy. So we have this hole in the heart, and we try to fill that hole with so many different things. But it's like a piece in the puzzle. You try and fit the wrong piece in that space. You can try so many different pieces, but if it's the right piece, then it will fit. What is that space? What is that hole in our hearts? It has a particular shape. And that shape looks a little like this. Krishna, with his threefold bending form, playing his flute. We need to learn to put Krishna into our hearts. The Vedic literatures give the example of a bird in a cage. So there's a cage, and inside the cage is a bird. The cage is a bit dirty, a bit rusty, so you shine the cage, you clean the cage, you decorate the cage, you do so many things to make the cage look beautiful, perfect, prim and proper. And you spend days, weeks and months on the cage. But inside the cage is a bird. We forget about the bird. So we do so many things for this body, so many things for the mind, so many things for the intellect maybe also. But in doing so, we miss the soul. So Krishna consciousness is a science by which we learn. There is a scientific process by which we learn how to feed the soul, how to nourish the soul. And ultimately that comes by allowing the soul to come in touch with Super Soul, with Krishna. So this is really the process and the practice of Krishna consciousness, and this is something which is a fundamental need for human society. This is what Krishna consciousness is offering. So everyone has the opportunity to imbibe this and to share this with the people of Indiana. And ultimately there will be a temple here. There will be a community here. It will happen. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. This is his prediction. Nagar Adigram, every town and village. So Indiana, it will happen also. It's just a question of who wants to take part. Who wants to be part of that mission, and who wants a bit of that glory. Because it will only, the first temple will only happen once. You know? There'll be Temple 2 and Temple 3 and Temple 4, but the first temple in Indiana will happen one time only. So it just depends on who wants to take part. And in doing so, so much magic happens. When one takes on that responsibility, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said at one point, this is an Antyalila Chaitanya Charitamrita. He's looking around and he's looking at society, he's looking at all of the people, and he's saying, look at all these people, they're so misdirected. How will these people be liberated? How will they become free from their sinful life? How will they become Krishna conscious? Haridas Thakur says to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhu, chinta na kariya. Prabhu, don't worry. I will take some of that responsibility off of your shoulders and put it on mine. So Haridas Thakur went door to door and he was sharing Krishna consciousness in every town and village, going door to door. So in the same way, when a devotee comes forward and they say to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in their mind's eye, in their heart, they say to Mahaprabhu, Prabhu, chinta na kariya. I will take on some responsibility. I will take this mission onto my shoulders and I will say, I will make this my own. When an individual does that, then that personality gets showered with mercy, they become empowered, and amazing, magical things happen. I want to end with one of my favorite stories. Shyam Sundar Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, he tells this story. He was one of the pioneers of Krishna consciousness in the UK also. 3 couples went to the UK to share and spread Krishna consciousness. So he was one of those founding 7 members. So Shyam Sundar Prabhu, he describes that actually this time they were in San Francisco, and they had a temple, and they had to pay rent for the temple. It was a small building, house that they would use as a temple, and they had no idea how they were going to pay the rent. And it was literally coming to the last day before they would be evicted from the building. And he was just discussing with Malati Manaji, how are we going to pay the rent for this? What are we going to do? It's really, we have no source of income. We have no way of paying this rent. So the next morning, he got up, walked out of the building, just going for Mangalarati. It's 4:30 in the morning. And he's walking down the road. And literally, what does he see? $100 bills. A bunch of them just floating down the road. And he's going to Mangalarati and he's thinking, am I dreaming? Have I actually woken up? And these $100 bills just floating down the road, and he just starts grabbing the $100 bills. And it just came from nowhere. And he describes, this is in Prabhupada Memories, he describes that it was just so magical. And with this money, of course, they could pay the rent and some. And he said it was a miracle. It was a miracle. But he said at the same time, they began to expect miracles. This was one such miracle. But these miracles were happening so regularly because Krishna reciprocates with us when we put ourselves on the line. When we accept tapasya. Tapasya means voluntary difficulty that one accepts for a higher cause. So Srila Prabhupada accepted tapasya. So many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples accepted so much tapasya to establish the Krishna consciousness movement. In that same parampara, we should also be ready to accept tapasya. Voluntary difficulty for a higher purpose, Srila Prabhupada says. So yes, establishing a community, establishing a temple is tapasya. It's not a walk in the park. But it comes with so much reward, so much experience, spiritual experience, so much mercy, There's nothing better that you could do with your life. Otherwise, life is boring. Life is so boring if you're not preaching. Srila Prabhupada said, preaching is life. What do I mean by preaching? I mean tastefully, lovingly, compassionately sharing the absolute truth with conditioned souls. Sharing the faith in your heart with others, with those who want to hear. The ninth offense against the holy name is to preach to the faithless. With those who want to hear, who want to know, who are curious, who are open, share with them Krishna. And there's nothing better that you can do with your life. The experiences and the realizations that come are unrivaled. And the mercy that you will receive, the advancement that you'll make, the experience and the touch that you have with Krishna as a result, is nothing like it. Otherwise, what will you do? What will you do in life? Have a job, have a family, have a few children, get old, get diseased, and die. Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukha doshanu darshanam. These things no one can escape. Birth, old age, disease, and death. No one can escape. So this is an opportunity to really do something useful with life. So I'm just a visitor. Who am I to speak? I'm really inspired by what's going on here. I see a real core group of devotees. They need help. They need help. The more people who can commit, who can really take part and serve this mission, the more you'll see growth and the more wonderful things will happen here in India. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any comments, questions, complaints or criticisms. Yes, bro.
So thank you so much for sharing your own story and then going on to convey that message of the necessity of sharing Krishna consciousness, bhakti with others. This part of the country, we discussed this even outside this arena. It's difficult, but Prabhu, the question is, we are still ourselves fledgling, and we ourselves have a lot to work on, and we are trying to share, and I don't know, we probably are doing a little bit, but it's also sometimes feels like, are we really getting anywhere? We feel like we are maybe sacrificing, but it's I won't say that, because it's probably eventually to our own benefit, but there is this constant friction. How to balance, how to not go overboard, especially for 99.3% of the people in this room who are pretty much householders with quote-unquote responsibilities, the job, the family, and also being expected to do something for the movement. I understand that this is for our best, in our best interest, but we are still not at that point where we are convinced about it, and we feel burnt out sometimes, but then we get up again. So what are some of the things that you can tell based on your experience, that will help us, that will be that shining beacon at the end of the tunnel, maybe at a distance, that that can inspire us to push on.
Srila Prabhupada took people who were addicted to every drink, sex, drugs, rock and roll. That was a life, right? 60s, youth, that was what they were into. He took them, lifted them up, didn't give them years of training, education, he lifted them up, taught them the basics, gave them a couple, there were very few books in the movement in the late 60s, gave them the basics, and said preach. And you learn so much on the job, first of all. When I went out on book distribution for the first few times, people would ask questions, and I felt so stupid when I couldn't answer those questions. So that made me go back, and when I was reading, I was so much more attentive to make sure that I'm really absorbing this, so that next time I get asked a question, I'll be able to present our philosophy in a very clear and logical and convincing way. And I remember when I was a student at school, and we were in religious education class, and there were 2 Hindu boys in the school. In my class there were 2 Hindu boys, myself and one other. And naturally we're doing Hinduism, so there was 1 hour dedicated to learning about Hinduism. So then in that hour they asked us questions. And he said, so the teacher asked, is smoking, is alcohol allowed in Hinduism? He said yes. I said no. And then, is sex outside of marriage? No. Sex before marriage, is it allowed? He said no. I said yes. Is meat allowed in Hinduism? He said yes. I said no. So like that we went back and forth. And I really felt then that I really need to understand our philosophy. I really need to understand what it means. What are the Vedic literature saying? So we need to really read and study. And this, when you preach, when you share Krishna consciousness, you're forced to really understand, to really read. Then what you read becomes live, becomes active. The other thing is that when you serve Krishna, time is Krishna's energy. It's a spiritual point, but it's the experience of the devotees. When you serve Krishna, when you use your time in Krishna's service, then Krishna expands time. When you waste time, when you don't use it in his service, then time contracts. Krishna makes time for you. When you serve him, when you serve Krishna, he reciprocates. So time is one of the most important resources. Chanakya Pandit says, Ayusha kshan ekopi nalabhya swarnakotipi. A moment cannot be bought even if you have 1,000,000 gold coins. So yes, but when you use that time in Krishna's service, Krishna gives you more time. He resolves problems and issues. And the final thing I'll say is that when you preach, when you share, when you give others Krishna consciousness, by sharing, you retain what you've learned yourself, and what you learn grows. Your conviction grows. And Krishna, he says, Tesham satadhyuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yena mama piyantite. He says in 10:10 Bhagavad Gita, that for those who serve me constantly, and as a householder, you have a job, you have a family, you have a household, you have so many things to take care of. This is all in service to Krishna. You're maintaining a household so that you can serve Krishna, so your wife and children can be Krishna conscious. This is all service to Krishna. So as you serve Krishna constantly, Krishna reveals in your heart, and read the purport 10:10. Krishna reveals in your heart everything you need to know by which you can come to him. So if you genuinely don't have time, how about that person who's sincerely serving, genuinely doesn't have time? Krishna promises, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. I will give them the intelligence, the knowledge by which they can come to me. So we should rest assured, Krishna's got our back. He's taking care of us. We have to serve with our hearts. We should read and study, absolutely, it's very important. But if you really don't have the time sometimes, Krishna takes care. Krishna will give you the knowledge within your heart. Yasya deve parabhakti, yatha deve tatha guru, tasyati katata yartha, Prakashante Mahatmana, for one who has implicit faith in Guru and in Krishna, these two entities. One who has implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, for him, all of the imports of the Vedic literatures are automatically revealed in the heart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Could say a lot more, but a few main points. Someone else? One more quick question.
Questions?
Mataji.
This won't go all the way there, but I'll try.
It's nice to see a familiar face from London, Ananda, Chaitanya. My question isn't necessarily related, but you can link it if you like. But could you share a funny story from your experience in sharing love and, like you said, tastefully, lovingly, compassionately, something that can uplift our spirits? Because sometimes, I know when I came, I'd think, oh gosh, is this like too serious or something? And then, if you have a story from your own personal experience, if you can.
I mean, I can share. I mean, I've got so many stories which have really inspired me to continue sharing. Once I was, we go, many of you may have seen, we go, maybe not so much here in Indiana yet, but we go on the streets and we share Bhagavad Gita, Krishna conscious literature with the people. And once I was having a really hard time. I was in central London on Oxford Street. And Oxford Street is a very busy shopping street. Everyone's going 100 miles an hour. There are people to see, places to go, and no one wants to stop. So there have been occasions in my life when I decided to put myself through the, what is it called? Huh? Yeah, I decided to go to Oxford Street to distribute books. And there was one day nothing was happening, no one was stopping, it was so tough. And then randomly a man just walked across the road. I saw him, he walked across the road, and he just said to me, "You are doing the most important thing on this planet. Never think about stopping, never give up, always continue doing this." And then he just left. I was like, wow, that was powerful. I was just like, that was surcharging. And I was thinking of, I was there for 5 hours at that time and nothing was happening, no one was interested. And then suddenly he came out of the blue and just said that to me and then left. And I was so surcharged and I just felt like, you know how they have this image of like demigods throwing flowers from you from the heavens? I just felt like that. It was so empowering. I thought, where did this guy come from? There was another time I was in northern Sweden. It was 2019. It was February. And February is the coldest month of the year. But I was in northern Sweden. And it was minus 37 degrees. It's cold. I felt like my fingers and toes were going to drop off. And I arrived in this town. It's called Luleå in northern Sweden. You can look it up if you like. And it was a super cold day, very few people on the streets. And people, okay, they're used to it, but no one wanted to stop. No one wanted to stop. No one wanted to talk to a Hare Krishna monk who's going to give them some books about things they're probably not very interested in. So nothing was happening, no one's stopping. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? It's minus 37 degrees. I just want to go home. You know, I shouldn't be here. This is torture. So then suddenly a woman turns up, and this old woman who's got a walking stick, and she turns up, and she can't speak a word of English, and she just says, "Krishna." She's a white Western Swedish woman. "Krishna, Krishna," and I'm like, well, I'm not Krishna, but these books are about Krishna, and I start showing her Bhagavad Gita, and she says, "Bhagavad Gita." And then she grabs it from me and she holds it to her chest. And she's Bhagavad Gita. And she starts crying. And she says, "Bhagavad Gita. I want Bhagavad Gita." And we communicated somehow. Part of it was heart to heart, and part of it was through some form of broken English. I can't speak a word of Swedish, that's for sure. But she said basically that she has Bhagavad Gita, but she's been waiting for a devotee to come because she wants many Bhagavad Gitas, because she wants to give them out to the people of her town. So then she literally almost sold me out. She took almost everything that I had. But it was amazing how she did it. I should tell you that too. She said, okay, show me what you have. So we went to my trolley, to my bookstore, and she said, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And she had a pile of books this high. And then she started emptying her purse. She didn't have a card. She said, I only do cash. And she started emptying her purse. And then she didn't have enough money. So then she went home. And she said, okay, I'll be back. And I said, how long? How long will it take for you to come back? She said, 1 hour. It's half an hour to get home and half an hour to come back. And after an hour, she wasn't back. And I thought, yeah, typical. This is how it works. People promise and they don't come back. She came back after an hour and a half. And she came back with a bunch more money. And she gave me more money. And then she took all the books. And then just as she was leaving, she wanted to see the other books. And she was so elated. She took more books. And then she said, but no more money. And then she said, okay, I'll be back. And then literally, she came back after another 1.5 hours with more money. And she took as many books as she could carry. And we're in the middle of nowhere, northern Sweden, near Lapland, where the reindeers go and Father Christmas, hangs out. And there was this old lady hobbling along with a walking stick, but just so enthusiastic to receive Bhagavad Gitas. She's already a devotee, but she wanted to give these Gitas to others. And I was just amazed. So special, so powerful. So there are so many people out there who want this, who need this. We don't know. But nimit matram bhava sarvyasachi. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, just be an instrument. Just be an instrument. When you go out there and you try, when you go out on a limb, when you go out in -37, in the middle of nowhere, then magic happens. So it's very, I'm doing this because I didn't want a boring life. I was doing a 7 to 7. I was working in trading. You get paid a packet. But I thought, it's such a boring life. And I'm going to give the Lakshmi to Krishna. I wanted to do it for the mission, but I wanted an exciting life. When you share Krishna consciousness, then it's definitely an exciting life. Maybe not funny, Manaji, but for me, definitely inspiring. I've had so many inspiring experiences sharing Krishna consciousness, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you so much, and I'm really grateful to Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhu,
Yes.
this might be a great segue for you to tell us a little bit about the books which you got.
Yes. So I'm also here. I always tend to have a mission in my life, so I never go anywhere without a mission. Usually my mission is sharing Srila Prabhupada's books with the world. This time I've come to America sharing these beautiful books with the world. They're the books of my spiritual master, Srila Shiram Swami. Srila Prabhupada gave very early on in 1969, he gave the devotees a Krishna book. Krishna book is a summary of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We chant this mantra. Prabhupada instructed devotees chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Chant this mantra. Chant it 108 times, that's 1 round. Chant it 1,728 times, that's 16 rounds. But who is this Krishna? Who's Hare? Who's Rama? Who is this person? Therefore, Srila Prabhupada gave Krishna books so that when we say this name, the name is pregnant with meaning. Who's Krishna? What is his name, form, abode, associates, qualities, and pastimes? So with this in mind, with the Krishna book in mind, Srila Shivam Swami has written many, many beautiful, wonderful books all about Krishna, so that we can delve deeper and deeper into his name, form, abode, associates, qualities, and pastimes. Krishna is so beautiful. Krishna is so wonderful. Rupa Goswami says, Tunde tandavali ratim vitanute tandavali labte karna krodha kadambini katayate karna bude vyasprikam. Anyway, this long verse, beautiful verse. He describes it when I say this name, Krishna. It's so, so beautiful. It's filled with so much emotion in my heart. I wish I had millions of tongues when I say this, because the taste that I get when I say this name is so amazing, beautiful, and wonderful. He says, when it goes from my mouth into my ear, I wish I had millions of ears so I could hear this name with these millions of ears. And when it enters into the chamber of my heart, it renders all of my senses inert. Everything else, I don't know where I am. I lose myself. All of my senses stop working, and all that is reverberating in my heart is this name. Because when he chants his name, so many beautiful, wonderful pastimes of the Lord come into his heart, and they steal him away from the world. He's no longer on this planet. This is the experience that we should be having when we chant this name. This is the practice and process of Krishna consciousness. So what these books help us to do is to help us to understand how can I chant like Rupa Goswami is talking about chanting. So when I chant the holy names, I'm lost. I'm lost in Krishna's beautiful, wonderful, amazing name, form, qualities, abode, associates, and pastimes. Then nothing of this world will seem attractive. Because ultimately, really speaking, nothing in this world is attractive when you compare it to the all-attractive one. So Maharaj studied 2,000 books to put these together. They're beautiful, they're exquisitely printed in Hungary using the best printer in the country. The artwork is breathtaking, and what they help us to do is to fall in love with Krishna. And I'm not talking about the willy-nilly, very flippy-floppy love that we talk about in this world. I'm talking about true love, to actually fall in love with Krishna. So that's the purpose of these books. They're printed in Hungary. We don't have them available here in America. We're passing through here in Indianapolis. So this is one opportunity to get hold of these books tonight. So please do take a look. They're exclusive. They're very, very beautiful. They've been very popular on our tour. And so please do come take a look and take a set or two tonight. I'd like to thank you all for being here. Many of you were at Rath Yatra yesterday, I forgot to say, so, and were involved in the preparation and in the aftermath also. But thank you all for being here today. Thank you for being part of the Indianapolis Yatra movement, mission, and please support these wonderful devotees who are taking responsibility for the mission. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON Indiana ki Jai. Nittai Gaur Premanandi.
Grace Ananda Chaitanya Prabhu ki
Jai.
Right, so now we will have a stand-up arti, and so yeah, is there anybody else over here who's here for the first time? Sorry, I recognized them in the beginning, but I forgot to. This is the first time I'm seeing you, Prabhu. What is your name?
Ravi.
Ravi? Okay, and you came with your beautiful family. What's your name, Mata? Shweta. And who are these wonderful people with you? Okay. Thank you so much for coming. How did you hear about us?